So Perry, we haven't talked about the market for a month in depth in terms of the numbers.
Yeah, we got the numbers now.
Well, what's interesting is, and then there's a placeholder slide from before up there. What's interesting is if you go back, you look at and just compare the overall market, we've been bouncing on the inventory side between 6,500 and 7,000 active listings, and now we're back at 6,500 approximately listings again. So what's interesting is there's always a little blip in activity in August, and this is the whole perception versus reality. There's a perception that all the inventory goes away. Now, in some areas, that's very, very true. You can go into Circle C and go into Legend Oaks, and there's very little inventory at all. And as a result, you will see things sell extremely quickly, multiple offers like you saw this weekend on your listing down there.
Yes.
But what I find most interesting about the current market is the pending in the last 30 days has definitely shifted down. There's a shift just because a lot of people want to be in before the kids go into school. And if you look at a rolling period, and this is sort of a definitional thing for our listeners, if the buyers were in a bucket, if you assume 30 days will be an average, and we're not talking about condos, we're talking about just the residential market, and you roll that forward, the size of that bucket is sort of the pool of buyers. Even though they might on average close in 40 days or 45 days, it's still, if you're rolling forward over 30 days continuously, comparing it over periods of time will tell you how many buyers are in the market. So if you look at it, that was basically, a number that was at 1,800 a month ago. And it's down to 14, almost 1,500, a little less than 1,500. But it was at 2,000 2 months ago. So there's seasonality to this, but it's also not 500. So for those sellers that were thinking that because some agent told you that the market just dries up and nobody buys anything, there were 1,800 buyers in the market 30 days ago in that 30-day period. The most recent look is 1,500, so it's only down by 300, Perry. It's not a huge change. So there's plenty of opportunity, and what we're seeing is the supply side, meaning the inventory, is starting to pare down. It's not a huge change. I mean, we're up to 4 months of inventory from 3.9. So when you look at the difference in the change, it's not appreciable. We don't want anybody listening to this to think that we went from 3 months of inventory to 7 or 8 because there's no buyers.
Right.
What tends to happen, and we may see this occur, is we start to see a more dramatic drop in supply. And you can see this if you ever look in the daily number of new listings in the MLS. It's dropped by quite a bit. So what tends to happen in the fall is we continue on. Again, our 30-day number is only down by 300. And what happens after that is the supply starts to meter down, and that tightens the market back up. My prediction is we're going to be down around 3 months inventory when we turn the corner after Halloween into the Thanksgiving period. And that's that really super tight period of time. And then once you get into November, you do start to see the demand meter down just because people that are relocating will buy. So we'll watch this. We'll take another look at it in another month. A copy of the report will be up with the show notes. But before we go today, Perry, I wondered if you had any thoughts on, sort of the direction of the market and what you're feeling. Because I know based on your activity this weekend that you're not seeing it slow down.
I had 2 listings last week that started up. Legend Oaks got all 4 offers in a week, and it was ridiculously crazy. I do want to comment on some of the thoughts. You talked about, on that particular listing, I thought it was interesting because for the last couple of weeks we've been talking about how to differentiate yourself, how to make sure you get when you're in a tight market like that. I thought it was interesting that 3 of the 4 offers that we had personal notes. One was even handwritten from the buyers to the seller, which we're obligated to deliver, and really kind of express their desire to own the house. And I think that was impactful because for the first time I saw we chose on countering 2 back, and they weren't the 2 highest offers. One was the most financially sound, and one had a really tough personal note that the seller connected with. And I think that was good agenting, and I wish I could share with you more because I want to put my give a special thank you out to the agent that was working on that. I do believe that those are the types of little details that help you manage a tight market like this.
And I would agree with this, Terry. I have a question for you, because obviously our advice when working with an agent and the experience level is such that I know one of the things I do is obviously we use personal letters as well because they are effective, because there is some emotional decision, not just pricing when it comes to a seller's decision. But what I find effective, which most agents don't do, is to call up the listing agent and interview them as to what the real hot buttons are for that seller, timing, what they need to do, what is going to be acceptable or not acceptable. Because when you're in a tight market like this, if you skip that step, you're giving more and more potential pieces that need to be countered. And if you compare that to a very clean offer, I'm just curious, out of those 4 offers, did any of them do that with you?
Only one.
Okay. Did it happen to be the one that you guys picked?
Yeah, it actually was.
It's not always going to be the case, but and my guess is, despite having that conversation with that buyer agent, you probably had less to counter, didn't you?
Yeah, I did actually have less to counter with, but he came up with the right package. I mean, he called me and wrote the personal note. He double whammied me on that.
Sure. So that's the importance of having an agent that's experienced. That doesn't mean they're experienced in 25 years in the market. They're experienced in working with multiple offers and understanding what works. That's right. I bet you if you looked at the last 25 offers you've gotten, because I can tell you this is the case with me, you get a call maybe 1 out of every 10 to 20 times. It's so rare that agents just don't do this. They throw offers over the fence, don't they?
They do.
And that's, if you're a buyer listening to this, your agent absolutely has to use this strategy. They need to be able to do that. And the way you do this is, and we talked about this a couple podcasts ago, don't ask the agent do they do this, because they're going to tell you yes, they do. Ask them what their strategy is before they submit an offer. And if it's not a discussion about, I call up the listing agent and I'll ask him this set of questions, you don't have the right agent. In other words, don't tip your hand that that's what you want, because they're just going to say, yeah, that's what I'll do. But ask them if that's what they do, because it's going to show whether they're connected with a strategy that has a high probability of success or not. Well, Perry, we've got a very, very strong market continuing. Episode 10 is wrapping up. I look forward to talking to you again next week. Great guests this week. It was an awesome discussion. We may need to have a mortgage guy on here in the next couple of weeks, or gal, and have a conversation about sort of what their thoughts are with the Fed and everything else, and when they think things are going to change. So wish you an awesome Monday and a happy September 17th. Go out there and sell 5 more listings. I know that's pretty much anything we can put out there we can sell. So if you're a seller in the Austin metro area and you were told, hold off, don't sell now, you probably didn't get great advice. Every case is unique, but certainly call us and let us talk you through whether it makes sense for you. So Perry, I appreciate your time. I'm going to flip to the questions from listeners. We don't have any this week because of the length of the show, but if people do, they can send Perry and I the questions to info@austintexasrealestatetoday.com, or there's a link for it up on the show notes on the podcast show. Thanks, Perry.